2021 is almost a fleeting memory, and 2022 is almost upon us. And I hear yourself thinking, Conqueror's Blade, should I or shouldn't I? Conqueror's Blade is an online tactical action game set in the Middle Ages. As a warlord, you'll be commanding your medieval troops while slaying enemies with deadly weapons in epic 15v15 siege battles. In this vast continent, ally, conquer, and become the greatest ruler of the world. In the medieval siege battles where over 1,000 soldiers are slaying each other, you can chop and slice your enemies as a fearsome warlord in the battlefield while commanding your armies to charge, shoot, defend, or other tactical options. Order English longbowmen to unleash piercing arrows upon opponents' troops in the long distance. Lead a squad of Polish hussars to charge towards enemies. Commander from high ground. Devastate fortifications with powerful siege engines like French culverins and battering rams. In this epic battlefield, two teams of 15 players will be fighting each other until victory is achieved. In Conqueror's Blade, glorious medieval soldiers like Hungarian cataphract lancers, Swiss halberdiers and Gaul crossbowmen are now all under your command. As a warlord, you can choose from 10 diverse weapons including short sword and shield, striking the balance between offense and defense, an adachi that slashes through a dozen of enemies with just one sweep, and dual blades, the ideal weapon for short-range combat. Choose your weapons, armour and units wisely, and enjoy the unique experience of every battle. As vast open world that is designed based on Eurasia, the map of Conqueror's Blade contains castles in European styles, city-states and deserts, and great city walls from ancient China. Apart from villages and cities, you also take over the rich natural resources like grain, horses and minerals in the map to build an even mightier army. Everything in the map is for you to conquer, and joining a house to form a strategic alliance and trustworthy partners will make you stronger. Join us in this war-ridden continent. Conquer your enemies, territories, demonstrate your unrivaled power, and write your own history as the sole ruler. Doesn't that just sound fantastic? Well, I've got to tell you, as someone who's been playing for many seasons now, I'm not sure that it is so much anymore. Conqueror's Blade has seen many new things come and go over the seasons, and what we're going to do today is try and decide whether you should or shouldn't try this game. We're going to cover a few things in Conqueror's Blade. We're going to cover the performance of the game. We're going to cover the gameplay itself, and we're going to cover some of the game modes that you expect to see, and last but not least, the community. Now, I think the first thing that we can probably do is talk about the community in this game. Now, being that it's a game made by a Chinese publisher and developer, you can pretty much be guaranteed that the large majority of the player base are actually Chinese. You have a lot of people from Japan who are also playing the game, Thailand, Singapore, Philippines, and actually all around the world. You have North American servers and you have European servers, depending on the version that you wish to play. I, however, play on the Steam version of the game. Being from Australia, it puts me smack bang in the Asian version of the game. As such, I play with the vast majority of Asian players. Now, something that we need to be very aware of here is, as far as the community goes, unlike other games where you might be able to talk and converse with many other players, sadly, you cannot do that in this game. As an English-speaking player, I cannot speak to the vast majority, or 80% of the community, as they are obviously from another country. As much as we may try to converse with some of the people in other houses from Chinese origin or Japanese origin, often it goes on deaf ears. So as far as the community goes in this game, the English community, which is the only community that we can converse with, is very broken. Now sadly, the English community isn't just made up of players here in Australia. The English community, or English-speaking community, which it is probably better described as, is made up of many different cultures from across the Asian nations. Now, that's not to say that it's a bad thing. It's really good to see some cultural diversity, but there's a lot that is obviously lost in translation as time goes on. Now, something that we need to be mindful of here is that although you might wish to speak with people in other houses or even within the English community, it does not always go that way. Sadly, the chat is full of anything that you might want to see here. people talking in their own language. And yes, the game does have an in-game translation which you can actually click on, which often doesn't really tell you much. You click on translate and sometimes you get something, sometimes you don't. It's very broken. You can try again and again and you'll finally get to see some kind of translation there. Recruitment for beginners, return and good access rates, autonomous participation in territory battles. As an English player, what the? The translation leaves a lot to be desired, and I tell you, I can almost promise you that most of the Chinese, Korean, whatever it might be, are not really paying attention to what we type in English. I found that there's a big segregation between some of the other houses and the English-speaking houses. Now that said, the chat itself is actually quite terrible. You don't actually get to type much to people. You can only have a limited number of characters, which means if you want to try and type something meaningful in chat, you just don't have that option. The only way that you can do that is by playing on the North American servers, where they do give you quite a large number more of characters to type. But sadly here, it's designed around Chinese, Japanese characters, which as you know can fit a hell of a lot more into a single character than what we can with English and a single letter. So the community on this server, on Dragon Rise Island, which is the server that we find ourselves on, is poor. Honestly, it is not a community that you find chatting a lot. So the only way to actually make a community for yourself would be to join one of the houses and join their Discord servers. Unlike games like New World, where you'll often see the chat box flowing with chat from all sorts of people about all sorts of reasons, the chat box in Conqueror's Blade is dead. Sorry to say, but the chat in there is just not there. The only time that you will, however, see some chat happening in the chat box is during or after a territory war, when people are being, as they call it, toxic towards one another. Slinging crap to one another, saying things like you are so weak because apparently that's something that people want to have in the game, or any sort of other number of insult that the game puts in there to allow you to openly make fun or belittle someone else that you've conquered, or people are just downright being toxic and typing terrible things in chat. Now you can't always type everything in chat, because if you want to say you play bad, for example, wait for it, you can't say the word bad. It's taken out. Why? Because translation. So even if you want to say something as innocent as you play bad, no, you're not allowed. And also, don't even try and ask simple questions. Is the war on Saturday? Don't be silly. You can't ask that. You know why? Because the word turd is in Saturday. So therefore, most of the English communication you might want to type gets blocked out. You're not allowed to say it. So the community aspect of this game is completely hindered and is just broken. They haven't quite gotten the translation right between English and the Asian cultures, so therefore we just can't really talk. Now, let's not worry about the community for a moment. Let's try and talk about some of the performance of the game. Now, the game itself performs, well, how do I put this nicely? Bad. The game has got its moments. Now, depending on what you're doing in or around a town, performance, you can move around quite well, move through the towns, interact with the various NPCs, but once you start to get into battles, and there are, as they claim, over 1,000 units on the battlefield, things do start to slow down. Now for me, my computer is not a low-end PC, it's not a high-end PC. I would probably compare it to something like a high-end PC. Now, even I have to turn all of the graphics down on this game to low or weak, as they put it, just to try and get some sort of consistent frame rate across the board. I could turn my graphics up to a high setting and get it looking beautiful while I'm in town while not much is happening, but then once I'm actually in a battle, then things start to go pretty bad. Now, that's not what you want for a game. You want to have consistency across the board, so I've got everything turned down to low, just so that I get that consistent feel between walking around in town or actually in a battle. Now, the next thing to probably talk about after community and performance is gameplay. Now, the gameplay, I have to say, sadly, gets repetitive. When you first start the game, it's fantastic. Everything is new. Just like a relationship with that girlfriend that you've been with for 5 years, who nags you constantly, but you remind yourself every day that you love her because finding another one is just too much effort. Much like a game, that happens as well. For people that have been playing this game for so long, trying to learn a new game is just too much effort, so we just continue with what we have. Now, we can look at the few different training modes or game modes that they have. starting with things like the training camp. All you do here is fight against AI opponents for a few possible rewards, which really is not that much. You have field battles where you can capture flags and defeat enemies. Sort of like you got your A, B and C, and you fight against one another, see who wins by the end, and again you get some more rewards, which really are not that great. Now the siege mode that people love at the moment... not siege, no, Surround the Bandits. You see a lot of people doing those once a week, which you can do 5 times a week to get some massive experience for your units. Okay? Once you've got that massive XP for your units, it's a way of leveling them up a little bit quicker, because what Booming Games decided to do was actually make the expeditions, which we'll get to, not worth your time. Yes, you can go and grind expeditions over and over, which, to be perfectly honest, get absolutely boring, and I'll get into why, but you can do Surround the Bandits to try and get some experience for your units. However, fingers crossed you actually get a group who isn't AFK, or is just there to look after how many kills they can get and they don't care about working as a team. They have some other modes that they run from time to time. Continopolis, The Fall of History, which is just a siege battle. The Quinn Ruins, which is basically just another type of siege battle. Frozen Walls, so you get the idea. Siege Battle is pretty much the only game that you'll want to play in this game, or the only game that most people play. Now this is where you have 15 v 15 people with all of their units that they bring in, making up your 1,000 unit siege battles. Now all the maps that you might see that they have, from Harbour City to Kurat Castle to Orgolia to Sun City, Valley Fortress, Allenberg, Frontier Camp, White Elk Fort, Wall Fort, Riverlands Castle, a repository of gunpowder cannons and other heavy weaponry, another camp that's got a name that's too long to even talk about, and Hailung Ford. You have these maps which might go in rotation. That sounds rather interesting. Get to play various siege battles on various maps. Sadly, no. While all those maps exist, you'll play Siege Battle on the same 3 maps on repeat over and over again. Now the downside here is while Siege Battles are quite fun and can be full of heat, generally speaking you will get a team of 14 other people to make up the 15 on your team. Nobody talks to you. If they do, it's all in probably another language, probably a Chinese guy getting very angry that you didn't move up your fort ratio and cover a point and someone got through, so you're getting sworn at in some Asian language you don't understand. Or maybe there's a bunch of people who just aren't working together and are doing their own thing, or a couple of friends who are together kind of working together, but ultimately at the end of the day you have a team of 15 who probably really aren't working together at all. What you have to do is read the room, know what you have to do with the units that you bring, and kind of just go and do that. And if you don't do that, well, then no one pretty much wants to help you at all. So you find yourself in a siege battle with great potential, pretty much going to lose, or if you're lucky you might be on the team who are actually kind of working together and seeing what everyone's doing. So while siege battles are fun and at the start, while you're learning all the units and everything else, hey look, yes, you'll have a lot of fun. Now expeditions, as we touched on before, you have 3 various levels of expedition, 1, 2 and 3, which again give you some possible rewards, which again really are not worth it. Now the expeditions don't normally take too long. Expedition 1s maybe take around 5 minutes or so, depending on how many cavalry people bring, and just rush right through it. Yes, that's right, people just bring one unit and rush through it. They don't play the game mode, they don't try and enjoy what they're doing or work together. They just bring a meta cavalry unit and just rush through as quickly as possible. Expedition 3 you might see completing in around 10, maybe 15 minutes, depending on the map that you get and the objectives you have to complete. This used to be the best way to level up units, as you could grind expeditions day after day, map after map, and actually get some pretty decent experience for your units. But again, Booming Games put a stop to that because they don't really want people doing expeditions, they want people doing siege battles. That's really just what they want people doing. So you've got to go and do those. Now the downside to doing siege battles over and over and over again, rather than doing expeditions, is your units take damage. When your units take damage, that costs you money, which means that you can't just do it for free, you can't do it to level things up, you're going to go broke very, very quickly. Now ranked battles is just another way to show whose penis is bigger than someone else's penis. Pretty much the only thing that they do is they try and get various ranks by playing this particular mode. Now with the rank rewards based on what you actually get to, you'll get yourself a pretty little title, you get a few treaties, which, I mean, to be honest, you get them anyway, but if you manage to get all the way up, yes, you'll get a few things along the way. Look, you'll get yourself a pretty little title of Marshal. You'll get yourself a little frame that expires, so for all your hard work, that frame just expires anyway, and you'll get yourself a schematic crate. Now you might say, oh, that's alright, if I get up to that rank, I'm going to get a schematic crate. Yeah, but don't get so excited, because even though it says that you're going to get the Royal Century set schematic, for example, no, you get one. You get one of those. So by the time you've worked your way all the way up to that Marshal rank, you get the chance by opening that to maybe get one of those schematics, which means after 4 seasons of getting that crate, you might be able to get a set of 4. So, take that as you will. Ranked is something that if you're highly competitive, you want to play, because the ranked battles, people actually do try and work together. Now, why do they try and work together, you might ask? Because if you actually win your battles, you go up, you get ranked experience. If you lose your battles, you go down. So people don't really want to go down, so when you lose in ranked battles, it's a lot worse. Now, the downside to a ranked battle is you can only go in with 2 other friends, so it can only be 3 of you. So where you might like to get a group of 5 maybe to help even the battlefield and maybe have 3 groups of 5 to really work together, no, it doesn't work that way. You have to have multiple groups of 3 or individuals playing in ranked battles to actually try and win the fight. If you can't do that, well then, hey, I'm sorry, you just got to hope you have a good team. Otherwise, you get people who are there for, I don't know, just the fact that they're bored, perhaps, or whatever it might be. Once upon a time, I used to try doing ranked, but very quickly got bored of it just because you could never find good teams. That brings me to probably the most exciting, or used to be exciting, game mode of Territory War. Now, Territory War has to be what this game is known for the most. It is individual houses fighting to control the land. Now, what are they trying to control, you might ask? All this land here. Now, generally speaking, through the seasons, there's different points of contention. For example, this season, Conqueror City is not one that you can actually go and conquer. Constantinopolis, Tyrolvarus, and Orgolia will be what you can conquer this season. Now, the only way to do that is to actually fight to control land. Now, if we come up here and have a look, we can see that this particular village, once it loads, because again, not totally polished this game, once it loads, you'll get to see that a certain house actually control that. So this particular house and alliance, which I'd love to tell you who they were to give them a congratulations, but I can't. This house and this alliance control that town. Now, if we come over here, we see another house owns this one, Harpagon. So House Solaris, which obviously is an English house because it has an English name, in the alliance Behemoth. They hold Harpagon. You can have a look at any of the other ones on here. So look at Hafren. You've got House Inferno, or the Alliance Apocalypse. They are holding that village there. Now, once the region's open, the whole idea is you need to have a certain amount of influence in a region to be able to take over a capital. So Territory War is a lot of fun. You're fighting between lots of different people, trying to take the AI out of contention, remove them from their cities, and own them for yourselves. Now, traditionally, we've seen large houses or large alliances actually control large portions of the map. For example, Constantinopolis, there's one particular Asian alliance that they tend to normally conquer that whole area and hold on to it, and they have the people to do it. If you're not part of that house, don't even try going down there, because there's going to be more of them than there are of you, and it's not going to go so well. So what you want to do is try and join a house or an alliance to have the backing of the numbers to actually help you in this conquest. Now, that's easier said than done. You don't just join a house, you have to try and find the right house. There's many houses out there, and the only way you can do that is through the menu. You can go into diplomacy and you can find out what you want to do. Now, sure, you can sort this by Chinese, English, Dutch, French, Russian, etc., Arabic, the whole lot, but generally on this server, English might be where you're going to look, because if you're watching my channel, you're not looking to join a Chinese house, and to be perfectly frank, they won't let you join anyway. So you'll filter for English and you'll go and try and find the house that you want to join. Now, to their credit, they have made this pretty good. You can actually sort of filter by, the alliance name, by the size, by how many fiefs they have, all of that sort of jazz. But realistically, you're not going to join a house that's got 100 in it because, well, there's no room for it. You might try and find a house that's got some room. OFA, that looks like a pretty good house to join. 88 members in it, they've got some room. Why don't we join them? They're in an alliance, so they're trying to work towards something, so that's one of the things you can do. Now, if you don't want to join a house of other people, you can join the cohorts and, work with them. The cohort pretty much work for the AI. There are different groups, Jindai cohorts, Varusian Royal Army, the Algolia's Night Order, etc. These are all groups that actually work for the AI to try and restore the house, the fiefs, away from a house rulership back to the AI or cohort rulership. So the mechanics for this has been improved as the seasons have actually gone on. Last season we saw a massive improvement on the cohort. This season I think it's gotten even better again. So if you're not ready to join a house, you might consider joining the cohort. Now the downside to joining the cohort is it's very random. You don't know who's in the cohort, and you're probably not going to find many people. You might be lucky and join a cohort that have other people like yourself, and you might actually make a few friends. But then every week, all the members get kicked out of the cohort and you have to rejoin, and depending on if you're there to click that button straight away, it's going to decide whether or not you actually get to get back in there or not. Legions are another thing that you can join, which are the main armies for the areas, and how much influence they have depends on how much they can do. I have not personally ever joined a cohort. I have tried to join cohorts before in my early days, but was not successful because they were all full. So because I wasn't there to try and join straight away, didn't have a chance. So you've really got to be someone ready at the right time of the day to get into these cohorts. Now, with obviously the time zone here in Australia, that doesn't always happen. So ultimately, you're not always going to get to do what you want. Now that said, the system of territory war is a complicated one. They have been trying as time goes on to perfect it. Now, when you want to attack a particular town, you have to look at a few things. You have to look at how much prestige you need to declare war if you really want to get that town, and the level that you need to be, your house, or a house in your alliance needs to be to actually take that town over. Now, the problem is that with all of the changes that they've made, a lot of the larger alliances who, yes, I'm going to call them out, are scared to lose their towns because they try and conquer more land than they can actually defend properly. They go and they send units out to go and conquer lands, and then they use second alliances or other houses to actually declare war and stop anybody else from actually attacking that town. Because they're cowards, let's be honest. If somebody's got more land than they can defend, well, they just want to try and cheese the system to try and hold on to it. And I've seen many houses do it, many alliances do it. A lot of the Asian alliances do it. I wish I could tell you the names, but I can't because I don't speak the Asian languages or read them for that matter, and even some of the larger English ones. I've seen every alliance known to man cheesing their fiefs. It's just what they do. Because they know they can't defend it all, so they use all these mechanics to their favour to cheese. And the developers absolutely hate it, and people like our house, who want to play the territory war properly, can't, because they get cheesed out. Perfect example. Last night during Territory War, we actually tried to attack Zunchang first off, but you know what, we couldn't, because one of their other house alliances decided to declare war and gain ruling house, and that actually stopped us from being able to attack. So while Territory War used to be good, and you could almost go and attack anyone regardless, now they've made it even harder because the Territory War system and the prestige or influence system that they've put in place really makes it difficult. You can no longer just go and attack someone because you're in the area. Now you have to wait, and the only way you can do that is actually by doing quests. And if you do the quests, then you might be able to actually have a chance to attack someone. Now, how do you go about doing that, I hear you asking? Now, the only way to actually increase the influence or the prestige to be able to declare war is actually by doing house challenges. Now, these house challenges are not something that they make easy for people. If you want to do any of the house challenges, you have to do things that you may or may not want to do. Now, as you can see here, the members from your house or camp to complete 2 out of 2 or complete 240 daily quests is something that they can do. Now, another thing that they can do, members from your house can get MVP 50 times in Siege or Field Battle. But to get MVP in Siege Battle, let's be honest, is just downright painful. You have to play 50 of them, and you compete against 14 other people for MVP, and there are certain things you have to do to even be considered to get MVP. It's just a load of crap, if you ask me. Members from your house can have to complete thief quests. That's fine, those are something that can be done, and members from your house get wins in siege battles. Now, the trouble is, if you're grouped up with friends or people from your house, it counts the group of 5 collectively. So the only way to actually boost that number up is to play individually. Now, why is that good, and Why is that a good thing? It's not. If you're in a house, don't you want to play with the people in your house? Don't you want to work together? That would be something that I would think you want to do. But no, the developers have decided that the best way to do it is to do things individually and to do them multiple times. So it is not just that easy to do, and let me tell you, if you actually want to try and get that done, it's not going to be a quick process. Getting these things done takes a lot of time, and you have to be lucky enough to win. If you're not lucky enough to win, well then bad luck, you just can't do it. So talking about all of that, we've talked about the performance, the gameplay, and the community, and the performance. Now, answering the question of should I or shouldn't I play Conqueror's Blade, if you enjoy playing siege battles day in, day out, throwing all of your units towards something, then fine. Yes, maybe you probably should play this game. However, I just want to leave you with a final note, that for all the hype that they put into this game, just be mindful of one thing. The game becomes very repetitive very, very quickly. And unfortunately, the community is not that sort of a community that will actually band together and work together. When you're trying to play siege battles, traditionally people won't talk to you, people won't try and communicate. They expect you to just know what you have to do. So unless you're the sort of person who enjoys losing battles all the time, or enjoys trying to work with the team but the team doesn't work with you, I'd probably suggest steering clear of this, because to be perfectly honest, the cap between new players and old players is very, very high. Now, another video would have to be going into the units and trying to explain to you why that is, but that's another video for another person, because there's already plenty of those out there that go through all the units. Green units, blue units, purple and gold, and seasonal units. They're constantly changing. So is Conqueror's Blade a game that you should start playing? Sure, why not? It's free to play. It has some really good mechanics that, yes, can be fun for a little while. I'm not going to say you shouldn't play the game, because it's free. You should always try a free-to-play game, even if I say it's a bad game. But I just want you to be aware that if you do get into this game, to get to those competitive levels, to start to really stand your own ground in battle, you will be against some very tough competition, and your units are just not going to do anything for you. You get slapped around very early, and it's very disheartening. So just be mindful. If you want to start playing Conqueror's Blade Season 10 in the Highlanders and come and be Braveheart and pretend you're William Wallace and flash your iris to the enemy, then by all means be my guest. Just be ready for a game with almost zero community in-game, a game that is not exactly totally polished, even though it's now in Season 10 and you would think that it would be polished, and gameplay that will get very repetitive very quickly for very little payoff. So again, thank you very much for watching, and please hit that subscribe button and hit the bell button so that you're notified of any more videos, because we will be doing more videos like this and other topics on other games. Being the first video, I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.